welcome to We Resist Stories from the Front Lines of Climate Change. Um, really appreciative for the three core partners of this project, of this event tonight, is Sustain Us, Californians Against Fracking, and Greenpeace. So much love to all those. Can we give a shout out for everyone that's in person right now? Like, yay, here we go, here we are. That's what's up. Can we give a lot of love to those that are joining us from the live stream? Shouts out. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, so this evening, we're going to be kind of brought together by these shared stories of what's going on the front lines of climate change here in California. We have a bunch of really amazing speakers for you this evening. So feel free to just bask in these stories, hear folks out about the experiences that are happening. But before we get into that, I'd like also to acknowledge that we are currently on stolen land. We are on the traditional native lands of the Tongva people. So I'd like to really acknowledge and be aware of the fact that we do sit on stolen land, and that when we come into this space, when we come into this event, that we do so in a good way, representing, acknowledging the histories of colonialism and like resource extraction that continues to happen, not only on a contemporary level, but also that this is historical. So just wanted to honor that piece. And yeah, I would like to kind of go into, here we go. So I'd like to kind of go into the sense of what this event is, right? So for folks that saw the event page, this is the We Resist Stories on the Front Lines of Climate Change. This event will have many different folks speaking from different perspectives around what is going on in the state regarding the climate crisis. And also, I'd like to bring about a couple of participatory elements of the evening. So there is a audience prompt that's right over here to the right of me that says, that basically asks the question, could we get a volunteer to say the question aloud? Anybody? Yeah, feel free. Yeah, please, go for it. And can you project loud? Nice. Okay. So if you can imagine a future free of fossil fuels, what would you be excited about? So for folks that are tuning in online, feel free to submit comments, and people will collect those, and we will share those throughout the evening. For folks that are here in person, if you have any contributions you'd like to share, there are pieces of paper right there to the end there, and there's also postcards that we are inviting folks to write notes to Governor Brown around the climate crisis and the dire action that we need to take around fossil fuels and what's happening. So feel free to engage with the postcards, or if you have a thought or a contribution to this question that comes to you, then feel free to let us know. Do people feel good? Do people feel good about that? Yay! Hashtag yay. Cool. So next, I'd like to bring up our first speaker. So I'd like to bring up Alan Salazar. And a little bit of background before Alan comes up is that Alan is a member of the Tataviam tribe. And Alan is a storyteller, a spiritual advisor, and a traditional paddler of Chumash canoes. His family has traced their ancestry to the Chumash village of Ta'apu, now known as Simi Valley, and the Tataviam village of Piing near Castaic, California. And his ancestors were brought into the San Fernando mission starting in 1803. And he continues to actively protect his ancestors' village sites and tribal territories, which include the Malibu area. So please give a warm welcome to Alan.
Thank you. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Alan Salazar. I'm the son of Abel and Teresa Salazar, the grandson of Manuel and Vera Salazar, and the great-grandson of Antonio Maria Ortega. The reason I tell you my family background is that my great-grandfather, Antonio Maria Ortega, was born in 1855 in San Fernando, California, where I was born, where my pop was born, where my grandma was born, where my great-great-great and great-grandparents were born. It is the homeland for the Fernandinho Tataviam Mission Band of Indians. My great-grandfather, Antonio Maria Ortega, was born in 1855 at a time when someone could have killed my great-grandfather and they wouldn't have been sent to jail or to prison. They would have been paid a bounty for killing a California Indian. He survived one of the worst genocides in American history that happened here in California from 1849 to 1873. When I was a very young boy, 6 years old, me and my older brother, we wanted to get Indian haircuts. And the only Indians we saw on TV were on the Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett TV shows. This was the mid-50s. And the baddest Indians, the meanest looking Indians, had mohawk haircuts, carried these badass looking tomahawks, and fought the early settlers. And me and my brother wanted mohawk haircuts. We lived in a small town 30 miles south of Fresno, Hanford, California. And on a summer day, we went down to the barber shop on Main Street in Hanford, California, and Pop let me and my older brother get mohawk haircuts. My dad was a Marine, fought in World War II in Saipan and Okinawa. When he got in the barber's chair, the barber said, "Take a little off the sides from the back." He said, "No, give me a mohawk." Hanford at that time was about 10,000 people, so everybody knew everybody, like most small towns. When we walked out of that barbershop on Main Street, Hanford, California, everyone knew that the Salazar boys were proud of their native and their Indian heritage. And I learned at age 6 the difference between someone staring at me and someone glaring at me. And sometimes it's subtle. And looking back on it, I realized that's when I became an activist at age 6. And I fought for Native rights and causes my whole adult life. And I've been blessed since 1997 to help build and paddle in traditional Chumash plank canoes. The Chumash word is tamol. They were beautiful vessels, very seaworthy. Being flat bottom, they carry a lot of weight, but they're very slow. They're very deep, 2 feet deep, almost 3 feet wide, anywhere from 20 to 30 feet long. In 2001, we left Channel Islands Harbor in Oxnard, California at 3:45 in the morning, and we began paddling out to Santa Cruz Island. It was the first time in over 160 years a traditional Chumash plank canoe had made that journey, a journey that the Chumash and the Tongva Gabrielino people here had made thousands of times for thousands of years. During the mission period and the late 1700s and early 1800s, the fur trappers and fur traders would kill any Tongva or Chumash men in their canoes because we also hunted sea lions and sea otters. The Russians, the English, the Spanish, the fur traders, and all the population on all of our islands off our coast here went from 400 or 500 on each island. Catalina Island had probably 1,000 people at its peak, dropped down to 20 or 30. And during that mission period, when we were the slave labor force of the missions, we stopped building our tamals. And a group of us got together, and with the help of the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum, various other organizations, NOAA, we were able to start building our canoes again and relearning those skills. And I can just tell you from my own personal experiences what I've seen on our ocean. I tell people I'm an urban Indian. And what that means is my great-grandfather, Antonio Maria, his land was taken away from him by the early settlers of San Fernando and the Maclays. And his grandfather was part of a land grant for Rancho Encino, and that land was taken away from them by the Spanish wealthy and influential politicians in the 1840s. So we were urban Indians. We didn't have reservation land. And I don't apologize to anyone for that. This is just the way I am. It's the way I was raised. And I was raised by a Marine, so I'm not going to apologize that I do the Chumash are hunters and gatherers. We still are. I just do my hunting and gathering out at Trader Joe's and Vaughn's. It's so much easier. And I'm not going to apologize to anyone for that. So when I started getting involved with our tamols, our canoes, I wasn't really much of an ocean person. I was that person that would go and put his toe in the water and go, ooh, that's too cold. It's not because I've gotten used to it. Our waters are noticeably warmer now. Any of these people on Greenpeace can tell you 5, 6, 7 degrees makes a big difference to the animals and plankton and all the small creatures and big creatures in the ocean. We took one of our larger tamols to Lake Tahoe. The first time ever an ocean Chumash canoe had been on Lake Tahoe. And I've been to Lake Tahoe many times when I was a young man. The water is very cold because it's a very deep lake, and it gets its water from the Sierra snow melt. This was three summers ago. I was reluctant to get in the water as we were pushing our canoe out, and I stayed in the very back thinking, oh man, that water's cold. And when I stepped in the water, it was so warm that I knew it wasn't right. And I went back to my hotel and I went online and checked. The water temperature at Lake Tahoe that summer was in the 70 degrees. And they're having major problems with water temperature getting warmer and warmer all over the world. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, I went to Santa Rosa Island 2 summers ago with archaeologists, and we walked all over that whole island, going to ancient village sites that basically the Chumash people had been there and then just left. And there's never been any building out there, so there's artifacts and stone bowls and pestles, harpoons. It's just incredible. But when we went down to one of the beaches that's not open to the public, the trash was overwhelming. Buoys from lobster traps, broken lobster traps, flip-flops, plastic water bottles, balloons, all the trash you can imagine, and just a tremendous amount of it. They have one ranger on that island. And when her days are off, one more ranger comes back to take her spot. Every now and then they'll have 2 rangers. That's it. And I asked the state ranger, I go, do you guys go down and clean up the beaches and get all that trash? We don't have the staff. I go, what happens to it? They go, we just wait for nature to take its course. And when the big storms come in, it washes all the trash back out to the ocean. I was talking to my cousin on the way up here. Our climate change started 300 years ago. First, the Spanish brought livestock and cattle. Then they started farming and damming up all the rivers and diverting the water to their fields. Then the gold rush. Oh, wait, I missed that beautiful, glorious, wonderful, happy time of the mission period. But our climate change has been going on for 300 years. And sometimes we kind of wonder, why do the Greenpeaces of the world, why do the Sierra Clubs of the world only come to us when they do this? I mean, I only went to 2 years of college, but I'm smart enough to know that when you get a Native American man or Native American woman up here and they're videotaping us and we're talking about our love of the land, that my ancestors have been here for thousands of years. The Shumash have been here over 13,000 years. The Gabrielino Tongva have been here just as long. And now all of a sudden you want us to be in front of a camera to tell you how much we love this earth and how we need to make changes. We told you that 300 years ago when you came here. We told the early settlers in California in 1849. And my final question, final statement is, how many of the executive directors at the Sierra Club, at Greenpeace, at the Santa Monica Mountain Conservancy, name any other environmental organization, how many of those executive directors of those environmental groups are Native? That's how many. Bring us aboard. Make us a full partner, not just a spokesperson, not someone you trot out. And I haven't seen my 5-minute warning, my 7-minute warning. I'm probably over. If I went over my 7 minutes, I don't apologize. Thank you. Peace out.
Thank you so much, Alan, for sharing some deep truths. And yeah, I think that honestly, as we go into the evening, really trying to understand the context of where we're from, where we're at, and these speakers from the front lines being able to share the stories that they know and the experiences that they know, and just to really ground us in this time and in this moment. You know, right now we're dealing with a climate crisis that is exponential, and it's also one that encompasses like systems of oppression that are beyond the environmentally impacted. Right, we're dealing with a climate crisis, and I would invite us to expand our definition of climate to be the combination of social and economic and environmental struggles, and how we're able to see them as interlinked, and how we're able to build solutions that are truly equitable and center those that have been here and that have experienced these things firsthand. Um, Before I introduce the next speaker, I'd like to also bring us into the context of where we are. So right now we are at the port of Long Beach, and where we are, this community, as a speaker in the future of the evening will allude to, is that this is an environmental justice community as well, in terms of pollution and impacts to communities, and just a fact to really kind of sober the stage for a second, is that over 500,000 people in the LA area live less than a quarter of a mile away to an active oil or gas well. So we see that this extraction is happening in a really exponential way, that it's impacting communities, and that there are front lines, right? There are people that are getting impacted day to day in the immediacy, and people that are being impacted by these historical traumas that are happening. So in the spirit of that, I'd like us to kind of hear these stories and really allow people to take up the space that they need to share their truths and things that are happening, because at this point in time, the crisis is at a scale that we need to start being honest and work together and collectively to solve these issues. So next I'd like to bring up our second speaker. So Tiana Arredondo is a social entrepreneur, a strategist, and a creative based out of Fresno, California. And Tiana works at the intersections of public health, media, art, and the environment. And having grown up both in Santa Cruz and in Fresno, Tiana pursued a career grounded in addressing environmental and health inequities, and works in the Climate Justice Collective to create sustainable solutions to address the implications of environmental discrimination and the inequities that happen in the educational space. And Tiana graduated at CSU Fresno with a Bachelor's of Science in Public Health Science and a Bachelor's of Art in Mass Communication and Journalism. And Tiana's time and efforts goes towards connecting people of color to money and freedom via creating intersectional transformative coalition building opportunities, offering sustainable frameworks, and working towards educational equity via media. And her academic research interests include social entrepreneurship, physiological response to risk, generational trauma, and industrial organizational psychology. And when Tiana isn't in a meeting, Tiana is writing, reading, or singing to inspire future initiatives and introspective growth. And fun fact, this speaker and the next speaker after this is part of the California Allegory Youth Fellowship. That is an arts activist and coalition building project that is aiming to build out a poster about California issues, a la the Beehive Design Collective, which is over there in that corner. But without further ado, let's invite the lovely Tiana up to speak. Give Tiana a round of applause. Woo.
Is this okay? Hi, y'all. Thank you for being here. This is really cool. So, a tool that I've learned that really helps with like self-reflection in such a noisy world is rewriting stories to ourselves to be able to pull the truth from them. So, I'm just gonna share a little story with you guys. Thank you. Living at an intersection as a contradiction to society is an odd place to be. Tap dancer, powerlifter, singer, hip-hop fanatic, hiker, bow and arrow slinging, gun using, Chiodos Panic at the Disco under oath listening, tight skinny jean wearing, Fubu apple bottom, Fila Vans, Dickie, Aquanet, Blue Magic, reader, writer, healer, mother, sister, partner, rebel, slave, human. I have to stop there because the list could go on forever. My story is that of juxtaposition because what brought me to this place was choosing to fight. I come from the earth. When you are as mixed up as me, your soul only knows one way of reconciliation, home within my own human being. Moved by Father Moon, grounded by Mother Earth, all of the elements are me. Fire that burns inside of me because others can't understand my ability to metabolize, regenerate, and alchemize anything. The fire built up inside of me from being silenced by my own, the others from silencing myself. Water, the life force of all on earth that is intangible but everywhere, in everything. My ability to move in the world like water. Too little of me, a drought. Too much of me, an ocean. Just enough to be used, always needed, never cherished, appreciated. Earth. My soul grounds my humanness and reminds me what I'm here to do, to connect with others, the earth, and my truth, so I can stay connected to our people. My brown skin, like the earth, dirt, not beautiful to most, but needed for life, and packed in tight around things that others love. Air, an activator, a catalyst for all things, an unseen, unfathomable force that maintains equilibrium and cycle. She, her, they, them, Mexican, black, white, poor, educated, all of my complexities that allow me to activate others because we do share the same experiences and truths. Space, the endless universe that is me, my mind, the nothingness I make everything out of, the peace and power of my presence. And gravity, the reality of my existence that grounds others while I'm simply being. The endless, unseen weight of life that I have to shed daily so my subconscious won't sabotage my future. I'm from the earth, I'm of the earth. I'm brown, I'm black, I am light. I am one with the collective, with the universe. This interaction is what brought me to remember to go inside my soul, shed my ego, and create love, to live unapologetically as myself. I was 7, almost 7. My goal was to be 11-teen. I wanted my 3D body to age so I can hang with others like me, old souls. Santa Cruz Capitola, specifically, is where I lived. Interfaith, interrace, interclass, intergenerational community of humans, earth-loving, humany humans. There were flowers we could eat. There were bushes of berries that are guaranteed, fresh fish from the sea, and hikes to kindergarten. It was bliss. It was death. My father was dying, 3 kids, and my mother, a student, a wife, and an addict. Fresno, my parents said. We can't afford Santa Cruz. We're going to go live with Grandma. And before I knew it, he was dead. I was 10. My life between 10 and 24 was defined by fear and strife. But at age 21, a piece of me came back to life. Dr. Tanya Pacheco Warner was one of the strongest humans I had met, a beautiful, true warrior soul. She came to the States as a young child, as a young Chicana, and worked endlessly to love and serve others in the church and in the spaces she existed. Dr. Pacheco Warner is a sociologist. She earned her bachelor's and PhD, fell in love, loves her family and friends just as deeply as she loves her community. To me, she was magic. My 21 self was inspired in ways I did not know I could be. Someone that looked like me and understood me, made it, and did everything that they had wanted to do. I was her intern for the summer at the Central Valley Health Policy Institute. We're going to this meeting as observers. For one of our contractors, we are only there to observe and report back as an audience member. Our role is to sit and observe. A half hour later, I was in a city council meeting in the dry, Confederate-proud, ultra-Christian, conservative Fresno. We, our people, are the majority there. However, redlining, agriculture, lack of access, lack of equity, and lack of social mobility, gentrification, keeps us separate, poor, and distracted. However, we still show up, in this case, at a city council meeting about the affordable housing issue in our city. See, in this Fresno, the most brown and black people live in areas next to industrial plants, highways, toxic air, nowhere to play, and can barely afford to still live in these spaces. A 5th grade teacher stood at the podium facing the council members. These children have bugs and roaches crawling out of their ears and nose. They are living on the streets. Two white, cis, male privileged men chuckled. They exchanged glances. The other 3 brown people sitting aside from them were silent. They didn't move. This is not funny. They looked as if they couldn't understand her. Her second language of English wasn't good enough for them. The fire was silencing. It rose within me, and the water within my eyes spilled out. I left the meeting and I went back to my desk. Dr. Pacheco Warner said, Tiana, would you say the white man keeps you down? Air crossed my face. Dr. Pacheco Warner activated something I didn't know I had forgotten. It's true, but I don't think I'd say that out loud. Why? I don't want to lose clout or friends or cause any problems. Gravity, in the form of a stack of books, so heavy and grounding, I could feel the fire rising inside of me at once as if it had rewatched. I felt like I had rewatched a Star Wars length trilogy of my life in relation to patriarchy, racism, and capitalism. She was right. Water exploded inside of me through my whole body. The dam of earth inside of me, packed in so tight to conceal and hold in my power, had broken. My hard places were now soft as the dam came to be with the earth, and the water revitalized all that was already within me, my truth and my power. We'll talk after you read these. I'll see you later. I was politicized. I was seen. I was loved. I was shocked. I sat in my car grateful but scared. I knew that this was the beginning of a new life and a new me. I was free to be in space as I read these books, researched, and journaled. I was to bring back what comes to me in my power, in my unseen, my limitless, dark place. I'm an endless universe that believes in endless comfort, care, and opportunity as we work hard to save the planet, our communities, and maintain our sanity. We will flourish in this lifetime as living, breathing pieces of art. We are simply a juxtaposition in this country. Our existence, our taking up of space, Our speaking truth to power will awaken all of those who are asleep to white lies. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Tiana. Wow. A lot of really powerful stories, and I hope folks are enjoying it. Can I get a sound check about how people are feeling? Are people doing good? Like, what's going on? All right. Okay. Cool. That's all right. I'm playing. That's great. Just a reminder as well, for folks that are tuning in on the live stream and that have comments that they'd like to share, I will happily steward them in between the speakers. So if you have thoughts you want people to know or any comments, feel free to put them in the live stream if you're tuning in. For folks that are here in person, if you'd like to share any sort of insights or things that are coming up while the storytelling is happening, feel free to do so over there in that corner and write a piece. And then it'll get to me, and then I will recite it for you so that your voices are heard too. Because when we're talking about stories on the front lines, as you can probably tell by the last two dynamic speakers, is that we're really speaking truth to power and talking about what's happening in our world and the different experiences that people are having. So I would like to really stimulate that conversation, because the sooner that we start having these conversations, then we can start thinking about really reflective, genuine action to stop this crisis that, as you can tell, is so interconnected, complex, made of so many parts. So anyway, cool. All right, are people ready to hear another story or what? Can we get more stoked? I just really want people to be pumped, you know? All right, cool. Sweet. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker. I'd like to introduce Valerie Katangai. And Valerie, she, her, hers, is a journal art enthusiast and environmental science student at UCLA right now. Woo woo. Bruins, yeah. Having grown up in a heavily polluted neighborhood in Long Beach, California, hometown reppin' was good. She became passionate about highlighting the narratives of climate and environmentally affected communities. And as a carbon neutrality fellow for the University of California, she collaborates with other UC campuses and engages students in the system-wide carbon neutrality initiative of net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2025. Can I get a round of applause? You know what I'm saying? Yay, yay. During her fellowship as a Carbon Neutrality Initiative Fellow, she realized her campus was lacking critical dialogue surrounding the climate justice movement. She co-founded the the Environmentalists of Color Collective at UCLA, a space that amplifies the narratives of Black, Indigenous, and people of color environmentalists. One day, she hopes to apply her values in climate activism to a role in corporate sustainability. And in her free time, Valerie enjoys drawing, skateboarding, oh dang, I didn't know that, playing with her Aussie Beagle, and discovering hidden food spots. So I'd just like to really bring up Valerie and have her take it away, because that's amazing. Yay!
Hi everyone. How's everyone doing tonight? Okay. Um so when I was a young kid, I had a crazy obsession with plants. I would take pictures of every plant that I saw and collect as many leaves as I could and put them in my journal to keep them and look back at them. And that eventually led me to being really interested in exploring the environmental field growing up. And when I got to college, I was interested specifically in environmental justice. So I'm researching on my laptop environmental justice groups at UCLA and typing, asking my classmates, asking people around me if they knew of any clubs, and they said no. There were clubs that were highlighting and taking students to tours and different events that got them to learn more about environmental justice at other schools, and I said, why not have that here? So I banded together with a group of other UCLA students, and we didn't know what we were doing at first. We started organizing, didn't know what it was until we eventually are organizing a climate justice forum that brings different panelists to UCLA around the LA community doing environmental justice work. And on top of that, we work on a documentary interviewing different people of color and their sustainability narratives. So I am interviewing different community organizers, and one of the community organizers named Jan Victor comes up to us asking if they want us to go on a toxic tour with them and document that. So on the day of the toxic tour, I get on the bus with Leo and Emma, who are other UCLA students helping with the documentary. And we join a group of Cal State Long Beach students and go drive around Long Beach. And Long Beach is a huge, huge city. You can walk around and be in fields of green and go to these really nice bars and restaurants, and then suddenly you're in a concrete jungle where things like fresh produce stores are as scarce as stars that you can see in LA, and car honks are as common as the weeds that we let grow in the garden nowadays. And so I'm continuing on this toxic tour, and the first stop that we make is a series of islands that are really lush and pristine. They have palm trees scattered all over them. There's buildings that look like hotels. And these islands are located just a couple miles down there. You could see them if you just keep driving. And Jan Victor is explaining to us how these aren't islands, but in actuality, oil rigs that are extracting fossil fuels and spewing out pollution to the surrounding community. And I'm sitting there in the bus, staring at these islands and the nearby beach, and I think to myself, this is where I used to play and swim around with my family when I was a kid. And one day I imagined that I would go to these islands as a vacation with my family. And later on, I knew that they were oil rigs. I just didn't realize the severity of the situation until I was sitting there staring in shock and numb about what I was listening to and how much I had normalized this when I was growing up. So we continue on with the tour, and we're asked to count how many auto repair shops we see driving around. And I'm counting. I count 1, 2, 10, 30, 50, 60 or 70 auto repair shops just within a few miles. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, this is a lot of auto repair shops. Why are these all here? And I look back when I was a kid, and I begged my parents if I could bike around my neighborhood and walk around because I wanted to get outside. I hated being in the house. And I think about the countless times they said no because they were afraid that I'd have an asthma attack because we live next to one of the largest freeways here, the 710, which connects to the port, and tens and thousands of trucks drive to and from the port to deliver goods to the rest of the country and the world. And these auto repair shops remind me of the car culture that we have here in LA, how much public transportation is lacking and how much the outdoors has been inaccessible to me growing up as a kid. So finally, we get on the last stop of the tour, and we get off the bus and look at the Port of Long Beach, which, if you can see, there are machinery, there's cargo handling equipment that look like dinosaurs. I like to call them dinosaurs. And they're carrying these shipping containers that from afar look like Legos, that looks like a playground. And then you dig deeper and there's huge shipping containers, thousands of them, being stored here at the port. And Jan Victor, the community organizer, explains how these shipping containers and the equipment used to handle them, they've recently gone to electric and zero emission equipment, meaning that they don't spew out pollution anymore. And I'm like, great, that's cool. That's a green initiative from the Port of Long Beach. That's a voluntary, good-hearted thing. And so they say that this is not what it looks like. This is not a green initiative. This is something that resulted in communities fighting back against things and projects that they knew were unsafe and unhealthy for themselves, for their families, for their children. This is a result of community resilience. And we're here where I grew up, and together fighting different struggles of climate injustice, and I'm constantly inspired and motivated by what I've been experiencing, and from that point on wanted to integrate more advocacy for environmental justice and activism into my life. And as we finish up the tour, we go back to where we come from, and I get off the bus, go home, look back at it, and think this isn't just a toxic tour of a familiar place that I knew and grew up in. This is a toxic tour of my childhood and of my whole life. And that was really empowering for me. So thank you so much for being here to experience this. Long Beach is a beautiful city. It's got its positive attributes, negative attributes, and yeah, welcome here. I'm just so happy to be here, and thank you for being here to empower this movement.
Wow. That was electric. Thank you, Valerie. Whew. Oh my gosh. Cool. Welcome. Hello. Just a note, I just found word that folks that are tuning into the live stream are from people from all over California. So shouts out to y'all watching from all over the state. Also, we have people tuning in from as far as, I think it was either Thailand. People as far as Thailand are tuning in. So this is kind of wild. So can we just shouts out to those folks? Yay! Cool. Nice. Sweet. So we have another storyteller for y'all. This is a storytelling event. Go figure. So I'd like to bring up now Kelsey Juliana to the stage. A bit of background is Kelsey, who's 22 and from Eugene, Oregon, has engaged in climate activism since the age of 10. And when she was 15, she co-filed a lawsuit with the support of nonprofit Our Children's Trust against the Oregon state governor to ask for a climate emissions reduction plan and to protect the atmosphere under the public trust doctrine. By 16, Kelsey was a trainer and organizer for the Sierra Student Coalition's organizing camp. And by age 18, Kelsey participated in the Great March for Climate Action, marching 1,600 miles from Nebraska to Washington, D.C., urging climate action from world leaders and us. And in 2015, at 19, she submitted a constitutional climate change lawsuit alongside 20 other youth against the United States government. This case, Juliana versus the U.S., will be heard at trial this October in the Eugene Federal District Courthouse. Huge deal. Can we also celebrate that? Woo! Cool. And she has represented Youth v Gov work, hashtag Youth v Gov work of Our Children's Trust at film festivals, at classrooms, conferences, and all over throughout the U.S. and overseas. And her background also includes work with different organizations such as I Matter, 350.org, and Earth Guardians. And she was recently recognized as an addition to the collection of Americans Who Tell the Truth. Kelsey studies environmental studies at the University of Oregon in Eugene and aspires to be a teacher. So let's learn from you now. Teacher vibes right now. Yay.
Hi, everyone. When I was 18, I just graduated high school, and I had to fight my parents not to leave earlier and risk not graduating. But I graduated high school, and I immediately took off on a flight, and I headed for middle of rural Nebraska. I set out because I wanted to join the Great March for Climate Action. I believed fundamentally that there were people and places that were being affected by climate change that I, coming from 150,000 in middle of Willamette Valley, Eugene, Oregon, just could not ever witness unless I was there personally, intimately meeting these people and places. So I joined a group of about 22. We were from all over the US and Canada. And we set out to walk from Los Angeles here to Washington, D.C. over 8 months, covering 3,000 miles. And we did. We wanted to urge political action from the representatives whose states we visited, but also to really understand the faces and the places of climate devastation and of climate resilience. When I joined this march, I had really high expectations. I actually joined with the goal of walking barefoot. So I had this grand image of myself walking across this nation, barefoot, trekking, walking humbly, all these grand ideas. It was a little bit too much for my body, physically and emotionally. I could not bear that burden of walking barefoot across this land. You can imagine walking 20 miles a day in 100-degree heat over gravelly roads and rural agricultural Midwest states, along highways, along bike paths, inner cities, rural areas. After 3 weeks of attempting to walk barefoot for 4 months, my body could not take it. My feet gave out, my knees gave out, I was so exhausted. I had to then spend several days being driven every single place I wanted to go because my body could not take me there. So I learned, as an activist, as a member of society who wants to push towards inclusion and justice, we need to take on what is reasonable. We can't be overburdened. We need to take care of our bodies and our spirit. That's really important in this movement. So I had to face myself as I endured this walk. There were hard times. We walked through blizzards, 100-degree heat. We walked alongside illegal pet coke dumpings in southeast Chicago. We walked through very long, arduous stretches of nothing. We endured physical discomfort, emotional discomfort, but we also faced moments of hope and clarity. Outside of Moline, Iowa, we were camped out. We set up our camp outside of a church lawn. And I remember this man drove by in his mid-20s, and he got out of his pickup truck and started a conversation with us. What the heck are you doing here? I've never seen this kind of group around in my small town. So we pack up and we say goodbye to this guy. The next day, he comes back. But this time, he's dropped off out of his pickup, and he has 2 bags with him. And Paul joined us until the rest of the march, 3.5 months until D.C. So people will also surprise you. And there is goodness, and there is light. And we never really know the impact that we're going to have on each other. But it's still worth it to go out there and to try and make a change and to try and really understand each other and why we're all part of this movement. Now, coming into Washington, D.C., which was our end destination, I had this grand idea, again, a little bit grand here in my imagining. But I had this idea that we would walk into our nation's capital and be joined by thousands of people. We'd walk in, we organized this event, we carried these stories with us as trying to be stewards of these climate stories of impact and resiliency, and we wanted to share them at our nation's capital. We wanted to influence people, but also political leaders. And we were highly optimistic. We walk into our nation's capital, and there's maybe 100 of us, and we do our event, and we share our stories, and we go home. And this feeling of disappointment, this questioning, what was the impact? What was the point? People were asking me, well, why did you do that? Was it just for you? Was that selfish? What did you actually accomplish with that journey? In this long walk, it felt like when we finished, we had all the expectation and all the weight on these political leaders to then accept us and listen to us and then make a change. Little did I know that this walk would only prepare me for a much longer walk. Exactly a year later, in August of 2015, we decided to file a constitutional climate change rights case outside of Eugene Federal District Courthouse. The young people on this case, ages 8 through 19, I was the oldest at the time, well, still am, we come from all over the United States. We come from Kauai, we come from Manhattan, we come from the shores of Florida, and we come from Eugene. And we're a part of this case because we believe that it's time to take action in our own hands. As younger people, we may not have a lot of political clout. I was one of the few people who could vote when we filed this case. But we still have a voice, and our court systems are the way that we're going to demand climate recovery. This case asks, and I will say demands, that our federal government look at the fact that they violated our constitutional rights, our Fifth Amendment rights, for the past 6 decades by their deliberate and knowing actions in contributing to climate devastation and destabilization. We're demanding that the courts uphold their responsibility and their opportunity to utilize the system of checks and balances and demand a climate recovery plan from our federal government. And it's young people who will, in October, stand for 8 to 10 weeks of trial in Eugene Federal District Courthouse and testify and have their experts called to the stand as we finally get our day in trial and day in court. Remember, we filed this case 3 years ago, almost 3 years to this day. 3 years we've been fighting to be recognized as individuals who have an opportunity to be in that courtroom. We've been fighting frivolous delay tactics, attempts from our government to dismiss our case outright. We've been fighting for standing. We've been fighting for legal recognition, and we've just secured that. We've secured that from every branch of government as the federal government again attempted to dismiss our case by appealing to the Supreme Court and was just unanimously dismissed. We are finally going to court October 29th, and I implore all of you to take action in your communities. Because what I learned is that the faces of climate change are all of us, and they're plentiful, and they're across this nation, and they affect every way and every facet of our lives and of our land. And yet, if we all can team together and show up in our authentic selves and bring our authentic tools and voices and stories, we can collectively inspire each other and demand real change, not just from political leaders and from government, but from our local communities and from each other. So I'm excited to invite you all to follow this journey, continuing to follow this journey, this long walk that we're on. My mother walked across the country in 1990, talking about nuclear disarmament, global peace, and global warming. Little did she think, after that march, she questioned, what the heck was that about? What did we accomplish? What was the point of that? Was it worth it? Well, it was worth it to her daughter 24 years later, who was inspired by her story and by her bravery and by her commitment to change, positive change, that led me to delay college and do my own walk. And I'm still walking. And I implore all of you, please join us in this walk. The legal process is long. I first filed when I was 14 years old, a case in Oregon courts. But we're still showing up. And you can come and show up October 29th in your local courthouses, in your local district courts, in your capitals, in your schools, in your work offices. YouthVGov is the hashtag, so you can join us on social media. But please show up as your authentic selves, and I'm really excited to continue this walk with you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Wow, such a cool series of speakers. I'm pumped. I also have another, we have another speaker, but before I share that, I want to share a little contribution that someone wrote over there to the question prompt, which is, when you imagine a future free of fossil fuels, what are you most excited about? And Catherine from Californians Against Fracking and Dangerous Drilling says, and I quote from a written piece of paper that, is Catherine's words for sure, is, I am excited for a sustainable future where my kids and all children can breathe clean air, pluck fruit from the trees, and play among native plants without fear of being poisoned, where everyone can come as they are, and where the value of people and community is valued rather than profits and a capacity to consume material goods. Power to the people. Woo! Catherine, yay. Okay, cool. So before we bring up the next speaker, can I just do like a quick little fun chant for y'all? Just in the spirit of Catherine, I like that little ending piece. Power to the people. Can we say power to the people together? Like a count of 3. Is that cool? I want to gauge like how powerful we are really as people. So I'm gonna count to 3, and then we're gonna do a chant. Do people feel good with that? All right, cool. All right, 1, 2, 3. Power to the people! All right, now remember this is a metaphor. Like, screaming loud won't solve anything. But how are we going to make action in our communities? That's what I'm really excited about. So, as a metaphor, I would really like us to do that again and actually channel what power to the people looks like, feels like, and what the action is. So, as you're thinking and as you're saying what you're saying, power to the people, imagine one thing that you could do to actually channel power to the people. Because we all know late-stage capitalism and climate crisis stuff sucks. So, all right. So I'm going to count to 3, and then we're going to do this. All right? Let's do this in the right way. So, power to the people on 3. A 1, a 2, a 3. Power to the people! I'm going to do it. Wait, I want to do it again. I'm sorry. That was weak. I'm sorry, y'all. Like, is that the power to the people? You know what I'm saying? All right. Let's do a 3 again. All right. And I'm serious. Let's get loud. Let's get loud. Let's get loud. Let's get loud. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Power to the people! All right, cool. All right, cool. Yay. All right. The next speaker that we have, which is a speaker that we have, is Ted Garcia. Now, Ted is a traditional storyteller, elder, stone carver, and spiritual advisor of the Tataviam and Tataviam, Tongva, and Chumash peoples, and he will be coming to share a story with us. So, Ted, are you here? Yay, Ted is here. All right, cool. Yay. Here we go. Here we are. Yay. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I never really intended to come up and tell a story here this evening. I've been listening to some real storytellers. Most of the stories I tell are children's stories, and they usually have a message that comes along with them. But earlier this evening, I was speaking to a young lady who happened to sit by me, and I kind of introduced myself to her. And as I got to talking to her, she says, "You know, what you just told me was a story in itself." And I said, "Well, I guess if you've been on the planet as long as I have, I guess you do come across a lot of situations and things that you can bring to mind that turn into a story." And all I did was tell her how I grew up in a barrio in Pacoima. My last name being Garcia. Everybody assumed that I was Mexican. I don't even speak Spanish. I mean, there's a few little phrases I can say, but I don't speak Spanish. I don't understand enough to carry on any kind of conversation. Really had an identity crisis. As I remember when I was about 7, 8 years old, I asked my grandmother, I said, "Grandma, are we Mexican?" She looked at me and she says, "You are not Mexican, you are a native. You're from this state. You're one of the people." Okay. Well, I carried that for a lot of years. When I went to school, I told people I was Indian. Kids called me Chief, you know. Well, I kind of went blindly through school, high school. I met my wife when I was 17. She was 14. And I was in love. And there was a lot of things going on politically in the 60s. In 1966, I graduated from high school. I was 17 years old. There was a lot of stuff going on at the time. And, but I was too busy with my girlfriend to worry about anything. Just footloose and fancy free. That same girl that I was with, I married her on her 18th birthday, 4 years later. The same time I was in basic training at Fort Ord, 9 days after I turned 21. And I did my basic training. I went to Vietnam, and a lot of stuff was going on at the time too. A lot of protests, a lot of people just speaking their minds, and a lot of really nothing ever happening to solve. I guess eventually it got worked out, but it was just a matter of time. I felt that if people opened their mouths long enough, that they would be able to stop the war, that there would be somebody interested in listening. So I really didn't intend to live this long. If I'd known I was going to live this long, I'd have taken better care of myself. So I worked from the time I was 13 until the time I was 68 is when I finally quit doing what I was doing. Well, I worked for the Postal Service. I used to throw newspapers as a teenager. I worked a lot of odd jobs before I got drafted. After I got drafted, I kind of fell into a postal position. I worked for the post office for 35 years, and I did some monitoring. It's where construction companies, if they're doing any kind of excavation, they need a Native American on site to watch out that they don't dig up cultural resources or village sites or remains. During that time, before I retired from the post office, a month before I retired from the post office, I had a stroke. Before that, throughout my life, I totaled out 4 cars. After I had my stroke, I retired, had 2 knee surgeries, had 2 knee replacements, was in Hawaii on vacation, drowned, got resuscitated. So I was really surprised to still be here. I'll be 70 years old in December. So, like I said, I didn't expect to live long enough to come up and speak at more or less a political gathering. And, but I'm not dead yet. I've been listening to everybody talking out here today, and I know it takes time to get these things done. I don't know if things will change in my lifetime, but there's people who are doing things, even though they haven't. It's been 4 years since they've been able to get whatever they need to get into court. Okay, but like I said, if hopefully. But I'm not dead. Hopefully, I see what's going on. I feel I'm way past my prime to fight. I don't have the fight, but all I wish is everybody the best. But I still have eyes and I still have ears, and I still see what's going on in this country. I still see, I feel. I can feel how much hotter it is. I can see things going on around the world, earthquakes, volcanoes exploding, floods in the east, just all these natural disasters, and it isn't, it just isn't happenstance. This is for a reason, and hopefully, my grandchildren will benefit from this, and that's all I can hope for. And I hope that everybody who has a fight to be won, I hope it's taken care of this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ted. Wow. So many speakers, so much time. We're doing great. I'd like to kind of transition a little bit and kind of really honoring what Ted was saying about feeling, right? I think all of us have the capacity to feel, and all of us can feel the climate crisis happening. All of us can feel a crisis happening, right? With different issues happening all at the same time, around human rights, around ecological health, around economic inequality. All of these issues are connected, and they're built to continuously oppress and to yeah wreak havoc, so to speak. But I'd like to offer a song that that we can do together, and it's a song that has a part of the song being call and response. And this song was taught to me by two Afro-Indigenous healer folks, Che and Key, as part of a project called Dignity in Process. And it's a song that is self-titled a healing song. So there's going to be a part where I ask, do you feel? And people, everyone here is invited to say, yes, I feel. And I'm also going to ask people, do you heal? And you're invited to say, yes, I heal. And yeah. Do people feel good about a song? Yeah? Okay, cool. Yeah, this is a really healing song for me, and it also gives me hope thinking about, as Ted, what you were speaking around, thinking about future generations, thinking about those that are going to come after this, I always think about my nephews and my niece when I think about the world that I'm inheriting feels so overwhelming, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what would it feel like to be those young folks dealing with this world? So just really want to call in the fact that as we're stewarding the decisions that we make in our lives and how we move in this world, that we're helping to build a better future for folks coming in. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to start this and we'll get it going. We've got all of our medicine right here, right now. We've got all of our medicine right here, right now. Do you feel? And do you heal? Do you feel? And do you heal? Your heart needs your attention right here, right now. Your heart needs your attention right here, right now. Do you feel? And do you heal? Do you feel? And do you heal? We've got all of our medicine right here, right now. We've got all of our medicine right here, right now. Do you feel? And do you heal? Can't hear you. Do you feel? And do you heal? Can't hear you. Do you feel? And do you heal? Can't hear you. Do you feel? And do you heal? Woo! Woo, woo, woo! Thank you, Dignity in Process. Thank you, Chain Key. Yay. Okay. Sweet. Okay. Now, yay. I'm gonna kind of take a step back, and I realized that I don't know if I introduced myself, but I'll introduce myself, I guess, and go for that before we move on to the next part of the programming. So my name is Orion Camaro. I am an arts activist, visual storytelling educator, and community organizer that's originally born and raised out of Stockton, California. That's further north, but not quite north, that it's humble, you know what I'm saying? Down Central Valley style, northern Central Valley, but now currently live in Oakland. Some of the speakers this evening, as well as myself and a couple of other folks, are part of this project called the California Allegory Youth Fellowship. This project is an arts activism and coalition building based fellowship that seeks to build collective people power, that is trying to draw connections between social, economic, and ecological issues. Part of the ways that we're doing that is through creative interventions around the Global Climate Action Summit that's happening in September in San Francisco, which is a huge summit that's organized in part by the UN and also by the Governor Brown's office. And also working on a participatory research process to build out a visual textbook mural that represents different stories of social and environmental justice and injustice issues in the state of California. So we're currently underway working on that work, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the Global Climate Action Summit that's happening September 12th through the 14th and the related week of actions that starts actually on September 8th. So on September 8th, there's this thing called the Rise for Climate, Jobs, and Justice March. It is poised to be the largest mobilization on the West Coast about climate, and it's happening on September 8th. That march is going to be led by California Indigenous peoples, and it will actively center intersectional justice across the board. So, first of all, who's stoked about that kind of concept? What? March? What? Yay. And I mean, the thing is, too, is that we need to think also on our movements beyond marches, right? Because we're kind of past the point of some maybe no return, but maybe some return of justice return. I don't know what I'm saying, but you get what I'm saying, that like we need to work across sector, we need to work across action, and the march is a guiding light to get that going, but it isn't the only tactic or tool to achieve collective liberation. Am I right? Right? As we can tell, a number of the speakers this evening are doing a lot of different types of work to ensure that our communities are healthy for the long haul, not only on the front lines, but those in the future, in terms of thinking about future generations and people. So I would say for anyone tuning into the live stream, if you are able to come to San Francisco on September 8th for that march, or participate in any of the global, because September 8th is also a global day of action, so there's decentralized actions across the world, essentially, actually. So feel free to get involved and to check that out. The other thing I would say as well is that right now, as someone who, I think with everyone that like shared today, I think there's a lot of different people on the front lines, and I guess if it's all right, I would like to tell a little bit of kind of what brings me here. So a lot of the work that I started doing in Stockton was really around a lot of different issues that weren't environmental at first. There was a lot of gang violence, there was a lot of poverty rates, there was a lot of illiteracy, largely due to underfunded like kind of patterns in Stockton, and a lot of economic inequality issues. And through that work, I was able to see that there were real connections between the social issues that we experience on a day-to-day and the ways that that shows up on a large-scale level in terms of our ecology, where the narrative of disposability itself actually contributes to people being disposable. That the fact that we have empty houses sitting while homeless people are like unable to find a home, or that we don't have access to jobs because resources get continually accrued at the top. Those are the same system. That same system of disposability is what is causing human rights issues happening, as well as disposability that continues to create a mass culture of consumption and extraction that doesn't think about the costs that we're incurring on our planet. So, like I said earlier today, I would really invite us to challenge our perception of what climate is. Climate is, by nature, a complex issue that involves social, economic, and ecological struggles. And they're not separate. They are part of what is happening in our world right now, and that we work towards figuring out intersectional solutions, how we're able to build justice-based solutions that do think about all of those pieces at the same time. Yeah, cool. Oh, another, can I, yeah, okay, we have another contribution, which is awesome. So let's get that up here. Cool. So this person decided to remain anonymous. They said, I quote, "I'm excited for clean air, healthy communities, green space to replace toxic fossil fuel infrastructure, union jobs in renewable energy, public transportation that's affordable and accessible, electric buildings and cars, healthy, vibrant, and sustainable communities that take care of all of us." Yeah, me too. Definitely. Yay. Cool. I love it. Yeah. Can we give a round of applause to like the audience, y'all? Y'all are dope. Thanks for being engaged and excited. And if you're not, then sorry for assuming that. I apologize. And I'd like to also thank the folks on the live stream end. Y'all are the real ones. Tuning in, hopefully not tuning out. Cool. Good job to y'all. That's really great. And now, without further ado, I'd like to invite us into the next part of our evening. So I would like to get the folks that want to set up the projector kind of on set to build that out, because we are actually going to be graced with a video. And sorry to the live stream folks, y'all. This is kind of like an in-person thing only. I apologize. It's just kind of logistical. It's not personal. Sending so much love and good vibes to you for tuning in, and please continue to click the heart thing so that all the hearts pop up and all the good stuff kind of happens. Sorry for not talking to any of y'all in person, but y'all will get to see the video, so I'm not worried about that. But yeah, thank you, my live stream folks. You know, you're doing great. Continue to live stream yourself or just watch live streams in general. It's really good. But before we end that, for anyone that's like super into texting, there's like a lot of cool things that can happen with texting, not just communication with your friends and family, but also a call to action that we are actually going to talk about right now. So for folks that like, you know, we're feeling like they want to get plugged in and like want to get updates on what's happening, please feel free to text climate. How it's written here has all caps. So, I mean, try and gamble. If it's like lowercase, some of it's lowercase, like let's try that, but go for it. Climate to 877-877, and this will allow you to sign the petition to Jerry Brown and learn more about what's going on. So yeah, if you're curious, climate, try it all caps, or you could try it lower caps or a mix of the two. I'm sure people will. It's fine, right? Like any combination. Like I usually do the like lowercase, uppercase, just to bring it back to the AOL style. That's usually me, but anyway, cool. So we're gonna get the projector up and running and all that. But like while that's going on, I'm here, I'm queer, and I'm ready to answer questions. So, I'm playing, but okay, cool. Great. Does anyone have any cues or do I have another song? Ooh, that's a good question. I could pull one out of the universe. Oh my gosh. Oh, you're just walking nearby. Okay. Oh, another note. Yeah, please. I love notes. They're really okay. All right. So this note says, being able. Sorry, I'm coughing because of the wildfires. Being able to see long distances. That's what someone is stoked about when imagining a future free of fossil fuels. Also, they are so stoked for no smog and being able to breathe. Oh my gosh, I was just coughing. Aquí se respira lucha. Here we breathe struggle, y'all. Dang. Okay, I have another note. Oh my gosh. I hope y'all enjoyed this. Sorry for being funny or something. I'm excited. Oh my gosh, wow. I'm excited for an increased focus on sustainable architecture and a world free of the fear of resource wars. Oh my gosh, I totally agree. Especially around water in California. Am I right or am I right? I'm so thirsty, I don't even know what thirst is anymore, you know what I'm saying? But the other thing about water, too, is so one of the issues that I was working on a lot in Stockton was around anti-water privatization and making sure that communities have access to water and that corporations don't just privatize it all. Um, and I think a lot of the times when we think about resource wars, there's this false dichotomy that's brought up around North versus South. In terms of Northern California versus Southern California, but that's actually not true. We have water resources that are able to be dispersed across the state, and it's really about holding corporations accountable to the water resources that they are hoarding to make profits, global profits, mind you, of all of us. So just want to bring that hope to y'all. I don't know if that was hopeful or if it was like depressing, but maybe it was a combination of both.